It's my responsibility as an educator to make sure that my students are not playing through pain, to be able to guide them into a career that is holistically supported and sustainable.
You're listening to Artistry with Heart, a musician's wellness podcast. I'm Stephanie Lynne Bernards. Today, I'm chatting with Dr. Spencer Hartman, an incredible flutist, educator, and collaborative musician based in Lubbock, Texas. He currently serves as Assistant Professor of Flute at Texas Tech University. He holds orchestral positions with the Roswell Symphony Orchestra, the Southwest Symphony, and the Lubbock Symphony Orchestra, and has previously served as a lecturer of music at Eastern New Mexico University and as adjunct professor of flute at Amarillo College. He's also the newest president of the board of directors for the Association of Body Mapping Education. Spencer, I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh my gosh, the pleasure is all mine. You're such a musical powerhouse, Spencer. Seriously, you have your DMA in flute performance. You've performed in all kinds of symphonies and different chamber groups. You are a sought-after presenter at workshops, conferences. You're a passionate advocate for musicians' wellness. You're also a collaborative pianist and a certified yoga instructor. Like, what don't you do? What do you... Seriously.
I don't cook very well.
Well, me neither. But that's okay. That's why we get takeout, right?
Hey, yeah.
Seriously, you've accomplished a lot in your life, and you're like only in your 30s, right?
Yeah, well, thank you so much.
Dang. So, can we just like pull back the curtain here for a minute and go behind the scenes for a moment to hear about how your musical journey began? Give us a glimpse of where you come from.
So my family is a military family. My father was in the Navy for 20 years, so we moved around a lot. So I surprisingly only started playing the flute pretty late in my life when I went into high school. I started playing the piano really early. I was around third grade. Played the violin in elementary school, then the clarinet for a little bit. I always wanted to play the flute. However, it just didn't work out for me like that. And so the summer before ninth grade, I almost demanded a flute for my birthday. And, it really kind of went all down the hill from there, So here I am. I went to a kind of small state school outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania called Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and did a master's, traveled to Newfoundland, Canada, and had a great time there. I thought it was just a beautiful place to, learn music and study the flute. And then traveled to Lubbock, Texas, at Texas Tech for my doctorate degree, where I, shortly after graduation, did a year as a staff accompanist in the vocal area, transitioned into full-time flute teaching, and just most recently, this past year, won a tenure-track position at Texas Tech. So
wow,
just here we are, we're having a great time and just trying to, live the dream.
Yeah, clearly. I love flute. I grew up listening to flute because my mom was a virtuoso flautist. She now teaches more group general music, but she just has perfect pitch and she really just knocked the socks off the instrument. So I grew up hearing it all the time and I played it through middle school, but it was nothing incredible.
I'm sure there are some great recordings of you from the day.
I am curious what drew you to the instrument. It sounds like you tried a lot of other instruments and you just were like, flute, this is it. Obviously, all the way up to the doctoral degree. Like, why?
I don't know what made me want to start. I mean, probably right in the beginning when everybody else was playing the flute, it was probably just because it was shiny. I feel like, I have that kind of attention span where I'm just attracted to the shiny things. But then I think, as I started playing, I think that there's a real expressive vocal quality to the flute. A lot of those old school teachers and will have writing about how the flute is the most natural thing to the human voice. I like that it really doesn't have the back pressure that's associated with some other wind instruments. It just allows you to blow freely into the air, which I really like. We have beautiful melodies, lots of soaring. It's real satisfying to play. And I think our repertoire is so diverse and interesting, and there's definitely something for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and people will get to hear the piece that you're featuring later on in the episode. It's like you really can do so much with the instrument. And I have
Mm.
never heard anybody liken it to the human voice, but that is such a beautiful way to describe it. I couldn't agree more. So you earned degrees all the way up to the doctoral level, which is an incredible accomplishment. You have a Doctor of Musical Arts in Flute Performance from Texas Tech, and I just want to know what drew you, what kept you going to get to that level. I mean, that is a commitment. So tell us about your journey with that.
I always knew that music was going to be the route that I was going to go. I make a joke that I had no other like quantifiable skills. I'm sure I have other skills, right? But, I knew that kind of professionally music was going to be the route for me. And when I was in college, I was like seeing the professors teaching, just like teaching music, and I enjoyed college. I enjoyed music school at every level. And now trying to have a life and career in academia really does just seem like a way to make music school never end. So I feel like I'm just going to be in college forever, which I think is a great way. I think it's super exciting to inspire my students. I think it's great to collaborate with faculty. I think it has everybody under one roof where you can make great music together.
Yeah. I love that you frame academia that way. I feel like that is beautiful, and that means you're in the right position, 1,000,000%. I don't know if you could speak to the other side of academia. Is there anything about it that you feel like you're in it because you want to expand it and grow it? Or does it just feel like you've found the school that you are meant to be teaching in and you really resonate with the other educators?
I mean, I think I found a great school that I really like, of course. After getting my doctorate degree and kind of transitioned into the, movement educator, musician's wellness piece, I really do think that that is where I think there is the gap in the system. So I feel like it's my responsibility as an educator to make sure that my students are not playing through pain and playing through injury. I take great responsibility in the fact of making sure that I have the knowledge to be able to guide them into a career that is holistically supported and sustainable.
100%. Yeah, yeah. Seeing the gap and filling it. I love that. I love that. I think personally, I've just kind of questioned that for myself because I don't know. I mean, university settings can be a little bit, political, cutthroat, closed off. People have to play for juries, and it's all about how you play and how you present. And I think that can be really restrictive for a lot of folks. And I think that exactly what you're saying, there is a gap where people who are drawn to really like grow in their instrument find themselves in the university setting, but need a way to take care of themselves and honor their bodies. And I love that is your passion and the gap that you're filling. And I know we'll talk about that later, but I just was curious because I feel like some people are just built for academia and other people just don't love it. And so I just, as somebody who's like got the DMA and now you're a tenured professor, right? Is that what you said?
Track.
10-year track. That is so amazing.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I just feel like, so you're clearly the right person. And I think that it's for these roles, right? But I also feel like it's just interesting to like hear kind of like why you're drawn to it. And it sounds like you want it to help others.
I totally agree that there are aspects of the academy that could come off in that way. But I also think we're kind of trying to break those barriers down. I mean, one thing that I'm trying to do is be as authentically me as possible. And that's a little fun. I'm trying to have a good time at work. I'm trying to have a good time with my colleagues. And I don't want to necessarily tone down my personality or my energy to fit into some maybe dated view of what academia is. We can do great work and excellent teaching and innovative research while having a great time and connecting closely with our colleagues. That's where I think the future of academia could go.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Oh, that makes me so excited for the future of academia. We need more people like you with that kind of vision because I'm 100% with you. I'm just also curious, you've gotten so far. Is there a performance or an event in your life that you could point to that has informed the musician you are today, that made you really care about musicians' wellness to want to get this far to make this kind of a difference? Or do you just really care about people because you're a great person? Or both?
all of the above. But I feel like my life has been very progressive. Like up into like every opportunity was built off of my life experiences up until that time. So, I remember going into undergrad and like having to woodshed the flute. I had to like fix a lot of stuff. And so I remember that being in that moment, I was just like working really hard at becoming as proficient as I can. I remember my master's degree was like really kind of just like refining some ideas and like starting to work with like challenging my own like initial beliefs that I have, which I think now has become a big trend in my life because I'm always trying to play a devil's advocate to myself and everyone else, because I think it's like when we have that kind of perspective is when we ultimately make choices about whether or not we're going to grow and or change. And then I remember my DMA. I mean, I became a much better flute player, but I think it made me a different kind of human. I was really thinking about how am I going to deliver what I want to say? How can I be meaningful and thoughtful in my presentation? Ultimately, the musician's wellness piece just came up in my life it was over the pandemic and we wanted something to do to fill the time, and so I was taking body mapping lessons online just because I had the time available to me. And then, I haven't played through too much pain or discomfort in my own playing, but I recognize right away that there are so many people that are. So I think it's just like, my life circumstances just kind of led you here. And I don't necessarily think that you can plan for that. I think you kind of just gotta be like open to allowing what's gonna happen and being like a witness. If we're thinking about like the yogic ideas, like we are a witness to everything that is happening around us, even our own bodies. I think there's a little bit of just like allow it to happen to you, which is a little bit crazy when I think people want control a lot. They want control over their lives, control over their situations, and control is something that we hardly ever have.
Yeah, I love that. And I think we try to control the outcomes, but oftentimes if we just allow, it sounds like life for you. And I mean, I think for most people out there, if we allow life to unfold by saying yes to the things that resonate with our why and what drives us, we end up in the place we're meant to be. And ultimately, if we're trying to make a good positive impact on the world, we will do that through that thing that we're drawn to. And it just sounds like you followed that every step of the way. So I love that. And I kind of want to just circle back to the devil's advocate thing. I just am curious what that looks like in your life when you say you're a devil's advocate of life or situations. What does that mean to you?
I think we all have our immediate thought responses to something, right? Our immediate like gut reaction. And I think that that's very important, especially in music, to like trust your instincts, and like let a little bit of your subconscious come out for you. But I also think it's really important to, when that happens, to just notice that it's happening and then have a little thought process to make a conscious choice. I personally don't want to be walking around reacting to my whims, even on stage being like, oh, there it is. It's like a opportunity for me to decide out the window, So I really just like to make sure that I try to like look at all the sides of any given situation, musically, personally, professionally, and just like make sure that as I'm moving forward, I'm trying to be thoughtful and intentional. So that way, it's not like I'm letting the moments just fly by me.
Yeah. Can you walk us through like a moment in Spencer's mind? Like, what does that look like? It could be music, it could be life. Just walk us through what that looks like in your mind.
I feel like once we start to finally become self-actualized people, musicians, let's say self-actualized musicians, right? We go through our university degrees, our training, what have you. And we very much are under the guidance of a teacher. When we start to be like, okay, I have autonomy, I have choice over my situation. I remember graduating from my doctorate degree, and I had been in school up until that point. I have never stopped. I went like straight through, and I was like, okay, I don't have a teacher. I don't have a plan. I don't have a goal. What am I going to do with this time? And I think that makes you kind of like self-assess the gaps, right? What gaps do I have? Where do I need to choose to spend my attention? So what does a glimpse in my mind look like? I think it's a little bit woo-woo in there, but I also think that it's kind of organized, and I think there's checklists, and I think it's like we want to make sure that we're doing things now that will ultimately yield something later. I don't think that the one-off experience, that's not what life is. I think life is we're zooming out on the big picture as we age and go through life, and we see reality more clearly, and we have just like a more defined perspective. So I just think as a day in my life is just like, I'm like zooming out on the bigger picture, and the picture's getting bigger and bigger and bigger every day.
I love that. Yeah, and I think that I just wanted to ask because I think that we're just always inundated, all people, I think, with like random thoughts, and it's kind of like, the proverb that I'm probably going to butcher, which is you cannot help that birds fly above your head, but making a nest on your head that you can control. And I think it's just interesting to think about how assessing, like, does this match my values and who I am or not, and kind of making that choice and seeing both sides of the coin, like you said, and kind of making choices like that. Because I think that we, even without realizing it, start building beliefs about ourselves if we let thoughts just run the gambit and we don't like think critically about the thoughts that enter our mind, right? I don't think there's anything woo-woo at all about, exploring these concepts. And I think also what you said is organizing them and saying like, okay, what matches my why and my values and what I'm going for and who I'm trying to be in the world, and how do I organize that in my mind so that when I get inundated with other thoughts that might not be helpful for that, I can make a choice to let it go or pass through me, right?
I think that's great. And I was just thinking that it's also important, I think, to try to find opportunities where you don't have to do that, right? You don't have to. I mean, I think we can get thought process burnout just like we can get burnout from any other thing. So if our lives become so targeted on the music, then we lose kind of track of the human being, like a human being that is able to move through their life with freedom in their body. If we are able to move through our lives with a healthy balance of focus and healthy disengagement, I think musically all of that stuff is going to align itself. So I think that it all also comes back to just like treating your human body and your human mind away from the music side. So that way the music is in alignment.
Yeah, definitely. That kind of touches on the concept of inclusive awareness, right? And body mapping, or the gestalt, right? It's like you brighten your focus on the thing that's most important, but you're also present with all the other things too. And I think just kind of like relaxing into that. Yeah, no, I love that.
Great
Thank
reminder.
you for
Thank you.
Yeah. Same.
I'm in a space. Yeah.
Be aware of the space behind you.
I know.
Above you, below you. No, that's great. So you're a founding member of, is it Our or OUR?
Well, we call it Our Flute Quartet, and that name was just totally ridiculous to come up with. I remember we were like, oh, it's ours though. And then we're like, how can we spin that, And so now it is a cute little thing, Our Flute Quartet.
It's awesome.
And we had a great time together.
Yeah. And this is a musical group that is dedicated to commissioning and performing works by composers from underrepresented populations. Is that right?
It is.
And so our flute quartet showcases themes that are original, universal, and relevant.
That's how we got the name.
Yeah. So is R an acronym, or is it's just ours? Okay. What is it? An acronym?
Universal and relevant.
Oh, love that. I guess I could have picked up on that, but nope, right over the head.
It's okay.
So what was the inspiration behind creating this musical group?
So this comes back to the university I work at. It's interesting because a colleague of mine who I did my DMA with here at Texas Tech, his name is Dr. Sam Hood. He now teaches at Texas Women's University. Our other colleagues, both of these schools have 2 flute teachers. So Dr. Lisa Garner Santa and myself are at Texas Tech, and Dr. Sam Hood and Dr. Pam Youngblood are at Texas Women's. Lisa and Pam have known each other for over 25 years. Sam and I have been really close, and we're like, wow, we should just like team up and like go on trips. We have a great time. We'll like commission new music. We have institutional support. We are like getting grants. We're like trying to like make the thing happen for this flute quartet, which is a great little genre for a lot of reasons, but it is, you know, something that I think could be expanded. It all came out of just wanting to spend time together, but then ended up becoming something that I think is really great for us, and I think for the flute repertoire. We've commissioned about 6 or 7 pieces now, and
Wow.
we've premiered all of them at the National Flute Association over the 2 years that we've been going. And I think we took a little break this past summer, so we're going to try to start thinking about the commissions again and get moving and go out to a conference. Like, we love going to the College Music Society conferences. They're in great places. NFA is in great places. So we just want to travel and play good music and eat good food, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Well, it's really important that you are doing this work and that you are just bringing up composers from underrepresented populations, and that you're making it a priority to showcase those, especially
Yeah.
as
I
the
mean,
level of player that you are.
I'm kind of the belief that it's like what we have to do here. You know, I
Yeah.
feel like the represented composers are going to be represented regardless of the fact, right? It's good, like, there's no way around it. But I
Mhm.
think it's like, yeah, it's a big responsibility to me. And I think a lot of people out there that is what is important these days. And I do feel that.
Do you have
Mhm.
a composer top of mind right now that you feel like listeners should go out and check out that maybe they haven't heard?
Yeah, so we got a really great commission from an openly autistic composer, Chrysanthi Tan, and she has some fantastic music out there. And we love our quartet that we commissioned by her, and it's a great little piece. It has Greek, Cambodian influences. Chrysanthi Tan. Hmm.
Awesome. Well, everybody check Chrysanthi Tan out. That's incredible. I love that. I'm really excited to hear their music. It's going to be awesome. Segueing into being an advocate and all of the good things you're up to, you are a huge advocate for performance health and movement education, integrating 3 complementary modalities, one of which we've kind of already talked about earlier: body mapping, the Franklin method, and yoga. So unpack each of these modalities in a nutshell. I know, because I'm also a licensed body mapping educator, people have heard about body mapping, but I'd love to hear how you describe it to people who maybe have not heard it or of it before. And I've never heard the Franklin method, and I also just want to hear about yoga. So unpack these modalities.
Yeah, so we'll start with body mapping. I mean, in our brains have a physical representation of how we understand our body. Sometimes this can be correct enough for us, and other times it might not be correct enough for our situation. So body mapping is the process of studying anatomical truth and imposing that on your own body map. The one thing I see in body mapping people is like we teach them the anatomical truth, and then they feel like that's the only way to move. But it's like when we look at the anatomical truth, that's like a very small part of the human experience. Like, we use our bodies in much bigger ways than that. And I think there's ways to apply anatomical truth to any movement. Because I also be like, oh, I fixed it now. I'm putting my flute up in the way. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't think it's like that either, you know? So yeah, we have body mapping. Franklin method is very interesting because it's very close to the end result is the same. We're going to be trying to get nice dynamic coordinated movement, but it's by imposing imagery on the body. So we can use metaphorical imagery or anatomical imagery. And I think these two are really complementary. I think that sometimes body mapping requires just a bit more time to give a concept. But sometimes if you are quick enough and you can just throw a metaphor at someone, that is a really quick way to get a wham bam movement sensation. And of course, yoga. Yoga is a lot of things, right? It's like the asana practice itself, getting ourselves through poses, which, is not necessarily something I do anymore. However, I think there's so many other philosophical things about yoga that I very much try to incorporate into my life. I think there's a lot of breath work practice that's super beneficial for musicians, especially when it comes to calming down our emotions and our kind of mind space, and really kind of seeing how we interact with people and what are people. I think it really allows you to just like ask yourself the unanswerable question that you can just like keep thinking about and reflecting upon. Before I studied any yoga, I was not even thinking about other or anything, or like, what are we? Or, something, those kind of deep philosophical questions. So in my teaching, I'm primarily a body mapping teacher. I feel like in terms of my movement teaching, it's like I'm teaching body mapping, and I'll throw other things in here and there that I think are good to know about. But I'm primarily teaching body mapping with a little bit extra that I think can be complementary.
Yeah, I think it's good to separate out, obviously, the method of body mapping, which is like specific anatomical information about the body that uses specific scientific wording that is very, very like exact. And then I think there's also something very important about the use of analogy and metaphor. And I think that like separating them out, but then also integrating them together is a beautiful way, I think, to approach. And then, of course, yoga, which is just, there are so many aspects to it that are so influential and positive. But I think just everything that you're saying it's great because you're kind of coming at things from all angles, it sounds like, which is so great. And it just makes me so, again, like I said this earlier, but it's just so great that you are in the university setting at the level that you are, and you are prioritizing these aspects of wellness in the way that you are. My hope is that every musician in the university setting at least has some level of education in these areas, specifically with body mapping, just because I think that musicians' wellness and the longevity of our practice is so important. And most musicians don't get out of like a long-term career without either some sort of injury or limitation that occurs based on whether it's physical or emotional or whatever it might be. So I just love that you're doing all these things.
I remember when I first started, I'm like, wow, there's so much that I had no idea about. I can't even deal with what I'm learning right now. But now that I'm like, I'm not that old in it, I'm like, I've been licensed for maybe 3 years now. I feel like, okay, the skeleton actually makes a lot of sense and it's quite practical. Like when you look at it and you're like, okay, I can see why and how that moves that way. It's pretty, I don't want to say self-explanatory, but if you're open to investigating it, I think you don't need extensive training to be like, oh, I see. Eureka.
Right. Yeah. What was the one, I know it's impossible to condense, but if there was one aha moment that body mapping gave you that transformed your playing or the way that you view performing or your own musicianship, what would it be?
I mean, the big thing for me, while the anatomical knowledge is great, it's the inclusive attention piece. It's like where you are taking in what you're feeling on the inside and everything in a space, and like having control over that, being able to change and shift your awareness. I can make my awareness just to like how I'm feeling with my shirt on my skin, but then I can also like zoom my awareness so much that I am just a body in the state of Texas on otherwise a map or something. It's like so wild to be able to shift your awareness that way and kind of really take in as much or as little as you want to. Sometimes you want to be really open and inclusive, and other times you don't want to be that. Like usually when I'm on an airplane, I'm like, I'm gonna go right into my Candy Crush, and I'm gonna get through this experience.
Coming back to the body mapping piece, and what you were saying though that I loved is that sometimes you want to include more in your awareness and sometimes you don't. And I think that's a great awareness, especially for highly sensitive people. I am one of those where I just kind of absorb energy everywhere I go. It's kind of the crucible of my life that I'm constantly trying to learn how to undo. Because you're not supposed to take in everything all the time, right? That's like sensory overload to the maximum. Like, you just cannot be always open all of the time to energy and to emotion and to what's going on around you. And so I think that it's also very helpful to be aware that you can make a choice not to be, and that that's not unkind. It's actually very generous to ourselves, which is what we need to be remembering first and foremost. Because it's a huge energy expenditure to be always open all of the time. So totally. I love that. And I think I'm going to remember that. And I just want to touch on, before we move on here, you're the president now of the board of directors of ABME, which is amazing. And congratulations to you.
Thank you. We're having a good time so far. It just happened at our last conference that we had our first meeting as a board, and that was fun. I'm having a good time, and we went through the process of hiring a new executive director, and that was fun, so I'm having a good time. And I think it's going to be a good 2 years as president.
Yeah. So in those 2 years, what would you like to see happen in the institution while you hold this position? What kind of an impact are you hoping to make on the organization?
I mean, ABME is at a really great place right now because we have great people who have great ideas. And so I would love to, make sure that that people are able to share those ideas and be able to brainstorm and come up with what the plan is ultimately going to be. But what I would love to see just like a more kind of an international collaboration. Like, I know we have this kind of Japanese group. We have some people in Europe. We have some people in South Africa. And I'd love to see some more kind of expansion there, see how we can kind of bring these groups together. I'd love to, have a more international kind of situation. I also deeply care about correct anatomical information. And that's not to say that we don't have that, but I think it's like we need to be, as teachers, I think, very up to date. And I think remaining current and being current with our information, I think, is very important. I think the people of our education committees and our training committees and our scientific advisory boards are all doing the right thing, but I think it's like maintaining the dream of having music making without limitation, because we have just like the most current and up-to-date understanding of how the body moves.
Yeah, and how do you intend to make that happen?
Hopefully just allowing our people to continue working and supporting our membership, right? I think we have really, really brilliant members who care very deeply about research. I want them to continue to research, and I want to help them research. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. While that might not be my forte, as like going and doing medical grade, movement research, we have people for that, right? Allowing our teachers to become more vibrant teachers than they are already. In terms of the presidency of the association, I'm hoping that is just allowing us to keep doing what we're doing, I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers or really make any hard turns here. I think we're thriving as a community, and I think it's just like allowing it to happen and then making sure that we have our policies and procedures in place to support what we ultimately want to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's all really great. And I think that you're a really wonderful person to be in that position. As a fellow body mapping educator, I'm curious how you make this anatomical information accessible to musicians who, need the information, but are kind of overwhelmed by the scientific aspects. I understand it's important to be specific and to be up to date, but I also feel like I've found in my own teaching that some of the science-y aspects kind of scare people away from the nuts and bolts of what body mapping is trying to get across. And I'm just curious if you have any ideas or suggestions on how to bridge that gap for musicians who maybe just need to feel their bodies more.
That's a really great question. And it's something I think about a lot.
Yeah.
And I think, one, you just give a little, like as a teacher of body mapping, it's like my flute lessons, they don't want me to teach them a body mapping lesson, but boy, are they going to hear something about it, right? I will be like, look at this skeleton, that's all, and sometimes that's all it is. And then they're like, okay, and then I think the other thing is I really try to teach people that I work with that we're coordinating our movement outside of music making too. Like, I believe that if I can kind of coordinate my movement while I'm driving my car, or like while I'm doing my dishes, right? And find something very human about our movement, I think will be coordinated with an instrument. So I also just try to like give my students just those little tips outside of the music making that might, when you're sitting in your car, are your sit bones coming into contact with the seat? And that's it, and then they're like, oh, maybe they're not, or maybe I'm like rolled back, or maybe I'm like rolled forward. And then can they play with that experience, driving in their car? Can they just like make a little shimmy and recalibrate their balance? While we are music educators, we're also teaching human beings movement as well. And I think kind of hitting it from both of those sides, I think is a really effective way.
Yeah, love that. Thank you. So, as you know, this podcast is meant to serve as a resource for musicians and creatives of all levels and genres. And we do this by, just maybe pulling the curtain back a little bit and sharing about both our triumphs and maybe struggles. And I don't know about you, but I often find that the inner critic contributes to performance anxiety and kind of gets in my own creative way. It creates some blockages for me. And I'm just curious if you've ever struggled with any form of the inner critic or any version of that. And if so, if you wouldn't mind sharing that and how you work with it and through it.
This is actually a really interesting segue into the piece that I wanted to share with you today. So the piece I shared with you is called Petrushkates by Joan Tower, and it's a live performance from when I was spending a summer at the Round Top Festival Institute in Round Top, Texas. It's this small little town. I mean, I would say like 300 people, small.
Wow.
But in it, they have this gorgeous, huge concert hall that is just amazing. And every summer for 6 weeks, like it's the best young musicians in the world, are coming to study with world-renowned educators. So I wasn't initially supposed to play this piece, but then stuff happens, right? And there I was, getting my music for this piece 2 days before the concert. I'm having one rehearsal and then a dress rehearsal, and then we are going. And I remember in that moment feeling really stressed about the whole situation because, I was young myself and maybe wasn't as self-assured as I am now. I didn't know what I know about life like I do maybe now, which is still evolving. I had a real reckoning, I think, with like, what am I going to do in this situation? Am I going to go in there and think about it? Or am I going to go in there and not think about it and try to throw this down? And I think I was just like, I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to think about the people. I'm going to deliver and I'm going to serve, try to just like push it out. And I think that what I did in that moment was fake it till I made it. And I actually think it's a great recording of me playing as a young person.
It's beautiful.
Learning music. But yeah, I remember that was when I was like, okay, fake it or make it is a real thing that you can do. And if you fake it long enough, it will just be making it all the time, right? So I think there's something about like, if I realize that I am not in the personality to like walk out there and be so commanding of a stage, I can act, I can choose to look like I am, and eventually part of that is going to make its way into, the fabric of your being, right? And I think that's kind of what worked for me personally. It's like now that after years of maybe doing that, maybe I'm like, okay, I am just that person that will strut out on a stage now, regardless of if I am feeling super prepared. Perfection's unattainable, so let's just say that, but I also think it's like, I'm very, very quite thrilled with a 98% performance. I think you can't get much better than that. Stuff happens in real time and you just gotta let it and not dwell on it, So I don't know. I think it's the kind of just like faking it till you make it a little bit. I found to be, at least for me and my personality and my body, has been very helpful.
Yeah. I think fake it till you make it also is a lot like the saying act as if, right? It's like I'm going to act as if I am confident, or act as if I am
that's what I'm doing right now.
In my power, right? I'm going to act as if I have something important to say, which, I or just act as if I belong, act as if I'm worthy, act as if I love myself, act as if I am enough, act as if I am meant to be on this stage with these other musicians, because I think you do have to sometimes like trick yourself into being the thing that you want to be. And I think also it's very easy to just kind of like revert back. It's like kind of going back to the body mapping thing, it's like you only know what you know. And if you feel like your arm moves from your second arm joint, you're always going to move your arm from your second arm joint. And it's just this immediate shift where if you tell yourself instead that it moves from the sternoclavicular joint, wow, that opens up a whole other world to you. And it's like, it's just like a mental shift, right? Going from like, I don't belong with these performers to being like, I belong with these performers, right? And I'm going to act as a person would who belongs on stage with these performers. I think it's a really good reminder, because I think that it's easy to just kind of revert back to being like, oh, you're right, I'm not, or oh, you're, kind of regressing back into the old. And I think it is so important to just step into the new by acting as if, or faking it as you make it, or however you say
I
it.
like that. I'm faking it as I make it.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
Not until I make it, as I make it.
Yeah,
That's a really nice change there.
Yeah. It was a kind of a slipped out, but I feel like it is an active thing that we're always trying to do. And it's really not, I mean, in my opinion, I don't think it's faking it. I think it's just getting yourself to be the thing you can be, and getting rid of the stuff that's like holding us back. So I think it's great. And I would love us all to just step into that power that we all have, because the more we own our power, the more of a positive impact we can make in the world, right? Like yet another quote that I'm going to botch, but it's like the whole idea of, if you hide your light under a bushel or whatever, it's just, you're just hiding the ability for people to see the room, right? Like, I mean, you let your light shine, other people can let their light shine too. So we're not doing anybody any services by staying held back. So I love that you kind of were touching on that. And I can't wait for people to hear this complex and evocative piece by Joan Tower. And it's just, it features some really incredible musicians. And I can't wait for listeners to hear it in its entirety at the end of this episode. So is there any nugget of inspiration or wisdom you can give to musicians out there that want to find and embrace their authentic musical voice, or maybe just like something that you feel like you want all your students to hear? What do you feel like people need to hear that you've learned?
I think as musicians we care a lot about our music. I think we love the art form, but then we also want to be really good at it. And I think that a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves. And I think it's okay, to make a mistake today. And I think it's okay to not practice today, right? And I think it's okay to think about your identities, right? Am I a flutist first? No, I'm not. I am a human being. I am a son. I am a friend. I am a colleague, right? And then in there, we can evolve and kind of move those around based on our circumstance in the moment to decide what we need to be when we need to be there. It's not like maybe we are a little bit of a chameleon when it comes to our identity. It's like we are a lot of things, and we can prioritize which of those that we are. I mean, I think about that all the time. I'm like, I'm not flutist first, musician first. Hardly ever, even when I'm on stage playing my instrument, right? I'm a human being first, right? And then I'm a whole other slew of things that mean a lot to me.
Oh, that is so good to hear. I love that, Spencer. That's the top of the heap, right? Thank you. Oh my gosh. This has been so inspiring, and I can't wait for listeners to hear this episode. How can people best get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can email me at spencerhartmanmusic@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram, Spencer Hartman Music, my YouTube channel, Spencer Hartman Music.
Awesome.
I'm out there, Facebook too. It's fine.
Definitely. Well, I hope that people will get in touch with you, Spencer, because you have a lot of wisdom to share in your, 30 some years of life. I mean, you've really accomplished a lot, and you have so much talent and grit and determination, and you're like incorporating all of these really important wellness aspects and inclusivity aspects. And I just really respect the work that you're doing and will continue to do. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for joining me on Artistry with Heart. This has been so exciting and soul nourishing. And thank you for sharing your wisdom with the world, Spencer. We hope you'll stay tuned for future episodes like this one. Listeners out there, if you heard something that resonated with you or that you want more of, make sure to join us on Patreon, and you can find the link in my show notes or visit my website, stephaniebernards.org/inspiration. And here you can go deeper with the conversation that I had today with Spencer, with a journal prompt specific to the conversation that we shared. Here, I hope you can go deeper with your own personal artistry, because I hope that that's why you're here. Well, that's all for now. Until next time, be you and stay inspired. And now the full version of Petrushkates.
you.